March 7th, 2022. You're listening to Oblast with Don and Kevin. I'm Kevin.
And that makes Don. I'm Don.
And we're back again on another show. Here we go.
Hey.
Nothing crazy medical with me. You still working your job?
Still there.
All right.
Just got off at 8 o'clock. So
all right.
I had to rush home, poop. And
got your evening shift going on here.
Yeah, well, whatever.
Yeah, so this week I wanted to talk a little bit about heavy metal.
Because everybody loves metal.
Don and I, that's kind of how we met. We were both into metal. My brother was kind of really into all sorts of stuff. He was into punk. He was into hard rock, and then he was also into metal, and then even harder than metal, whatever you want to call that. It was all metal back then, but heavy metal. He got really into thrash, right? And thrash metal as it came along. And so he was introducing me to a lot of different music when I met Don, which was like 9th grade. And Don was already into metal, right? He was into some bands, right?
I was more into like the hair metal at the time and stuff.
Yeah, I would say that's true. Sure.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the heavier bands were still really underground. I mean, it was like, you just, again, we've talked about this in the past. A lot of it wasn't on the radio. So if you weren't introduced to it, if your friends weren't like, check this out, then you didn't get a lot of exposure to it. I mean, it eventually did get a little bit more mainstream, or you would hear about it on different things, but it took a while to get there. And so one of the things I was thinking about, because recently one of the bands Don introduced me to was Sabotage, and not a very popular band. They were on Atlantic's label. I think they may have started out on like a smaller label. Yeah.
No, that's Atlantic. Sorry.
But then they got a deal with Atlantic Records. And what's interesting about Sabotage is I believe they never had a gold record. I think that their 4th album did pretty good, right? At least as, it showed potential, which was Hall of the Mountain King. And it got some airplay on like Z-Rock and stuff like that. But they never really hit gold. But the weird thing is that before they officially broke up, they had released 11 albums, which is miraculous when you don't even hit gold. I mean, there's so many bands that did, right? Maybe some even hit platinum. And they didn't have 11 albums before they broke up or lost their contracts or whatever. Right. Now, granted, if you're listening, you might be familiar with Trans-Siberian Orchestra. It goes around, does Christmas songs, and that grew out of Sabotage. Yeah. The one song they had that's really popular on the radio was on their Sabotage's album, actually, which was Dead Winter Dead, and I think it was called like Sarajevo something or other.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that kind of, made them John money, because Sabotage was these two brothers. It was John Oliva and Chris Oliva. And Chris died in a car accident. He was with somebody else that was famous, right? Like a drummer or something in some band.
No, he was with his wife.
Oh, it wasn't with his wife. I always get this mixed up.
She survived, I believe.
Yeah, we talked about this previously, but on one of the shows. But the reason I'm bringing that up is just because recently Ear Music has been re-releasing all of their albums on vinyl. And so I've been picking them up. They're on actually Hall of the Mountain King, and they're all higher quality and all that kind of stuff, 180 gram vinyl that they call it and this kind of thing. And so I'm picking them up as they get released, and I'm reading some of the liner notes and things like that. And it was an interesting time for Don and I, because we, there was no online anything. So if you wanted to find a record, you'd have to go to the store or a tape and look for, to see what else the band had to offer. And Don and I were, getting into Sabotage around the Hall of the Mountain King time period, and we were both finding additional albums from them. We found Power of the Night, Fight for the Rock, and you found Sirens and The Dungeons Are Calling, which
Right.
these days have been kind of combined into one EP
Right.
or long play album.
Still good, by the way.
Yes, right. But what's interesting about that, and what got me on this topic is because that album, that Sirens album, was metal. Dungeons Are Calling is metal. There's no question about it. And then there's
Power
this
metal.
Then they came out with Power of the Night, which is also a metal album, but more of a not super heavy, but good, right?
No.
Standard heavy metal album, not thrash, let's say.
Great songs. Warriors, Power of the Night.
Oh yeah, great,
Good stuff.
Good stuff. And then they came out with Fight for the Rock, and that was like the label was saying to them, "Hey, you guys need to, make make a rock album because you're not going to get any airplay with this music that you're playing, this heavy metal that you're playing, right?" And this was around 86 when that album came out. And I was thinking to myself, and I was like, well, when did metal really get mainstream? Like, when did it hit that it was like acceptable for record labels and stuff to release stuff? Because then they did Hall of the Mountain King, that did get airplay, that was metal, right? And so like as their next album, but it's like, yeah, we talked a little bit about like Quiet Riot, Metal Health, but I don't think that was it. I don't think 83 was necessarily
No.
I remember 83, people were still
Right.
kind of in 70s mode in 83. They were kind of, listening to Journey and stuff. It was a different time in 83. Now, listen, metal music has been around for a while. If you want to go back to like when metal was coined and phrased and, bands that are heavier like Zeppelin or Blue Oyster Cult or something. Sure.
Sabbath.
Right? Sabbath, of course. But I don't think that's mainstream, right? Like those bands got radio play, but I don't think anybody would sit there and say, yeah, that's heavy metal, man. You know what I mean? Like maybe some 70s dudes would be like, that's heavy, but it's not the same sort of heavy metal that we grew up on. And so I was like thinking to myself, I'm not clear on when it happened. I mean, I know when Metallica released their one video, that made Metallica, for better or worse, far more bigger of an act than they were. Right. And they were a big act. But And Justice for All, when they started releasing videos, they blew up because all those people that never heard of them because they got no airplay and they had no videos, had no idea who they were. They didn't have friends giving them Metallica tapes. Right. But I don't think that was it, because Metallica took a while to join the video legions, right? There were already bands out there cutting metal records. So, I mean, Donnie, what do you think? When do you think metal became mainstream? When did you notice it to be, metal?
It was, well, I mean, obviously it was mainstream for us and all our friends and everybody, but I mean, I want to say high school. I don't know which one of our years, somewhere there from anywhere from 88 to 90, 91, something like that, because you already said it, the one video. That'll be, to me, that's a defining moment. Only because, I mean, now it isn't. I mean, it's not as big as a deal as it was then. Because if you remember back then, the whole big thing was Metallica was like, we don't sell out. We're not, we know we're not going on the radio. We're going to do our thing. We're not going to make videos. We don't need to be on MTV, blah, 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 blah. But then all of a sudden everybody's like, Metallica made a video. And everybody just went, oh, what? And it got popular. I mean, that's what, you know what I mean? It's like all those MTV, because it was one. So it was, boom, 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 boom. All that, it had a story, and it was like, it wasn't thrash metal. It wasn't something. Blah, 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 blah. So it was easier to accept, and I want to say it's got to be around that time, which is shortly after my other point, Z-Rock, because as soon as they made a station specifically for that, whether or not it failed or whether or not how long it went on or how what it did, they still did it. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think at that point when they were like, we need a station that's just going to play metal, right? And when they did it, that's so in that period, you know what I mean? Somewhere from when Z-Rock started, when we were like freshmen or something like that, walking into Mr. Lang's class to the one video, which probably wasn't that long after Z-Rock, now that I think about it, because I remember having it on videotape and bringing it to school and giving it to people. Be like, did you see the Metallica video? Here, take it home, bring it back. And yeah, so I'd say somewhere. So probably like 88.
Yeah.
89.
Yeah, that's interesting because, like, okay, so, Brian goes into the Navy, right? And there's really no metal, and that was around 86, right? Well, he graduates in 86, right? So he graduates in 86. He goes off into the Navy. He gets introduced to metal there for the most part, okay? He was mostly in band in high school. He was listening to, like, Rush and that kind of shit.
Genesis.
Genesis, exactly. The Police, okay? Yeah. And I'm just not that into music at that point. I'm in, like, 8th grade. And you know how kids are in middle school. You're transitioning at that point. A lot of kids are. You're hitting puberty. You're no longer interested in playing with G.I. Joe. You want to like start getting into music and doing adult things, right? You're getting there. Let's play Dungeons and Dragons or whatever. Doing things that are a little bit more edgy or whatever. Let's get into trouble. Let's ride bikes. I don't know, whatever. But I wasn't there. I had puberty late. I hit puberty in 9th grade in California, right? So that was like middle of the year in California. I just like bam and then shot up and everything. And high school didn't go well for me then, right? And so I didn't get into too much music then at all. Like I was living with my mom, and again, when you're talking about metal back then, if you don't have any friends handing you a cassette tape or a record or something, right. You're not exposed to it. It's nowhere to be. There's a little bit of Rat. There's a little bit of, if you want to call Def Leppard metal, there's a little bit of Def Leppard. There's a little bit of Quiet Riot on the radio.
Motley Crew and stuff.
Motley Crew, right. Van Halen. But all of that stuff is kind of a lighter form of heavy metal. Like it's radio friendly. It could have been rock. Right. It just could have been rock.
Well, that's what I was going to say is like it was those bands' lightest tunes, and they always played those ones. You know what I mean? You only hear Round and Round by Rat. You don't hear Back for More. You don't hear Wanted Man. You don't hear Dance. You don't hear, you know what I mean? So it's like they always pick the one song that's the most radio friendly. And they just stuck with that one.
Yeah, and so no, I agree. Sorry, I'm slightly distracted today, folks. I'm all right though. And so. I get back from California. I get my brother gives me a little bit of music to listen to, but some of the stuff my brother was listening to was too heavy for me at that moment in time. Like some of it was just like, it took a while to get to the Motorhead, the Lethal Tendencies from Hollow Z.
Fire from the Sky.
Testament with the t-shirts on our heads. The King Diamond, Slayer, right?
Yeah.
It was not. It's not that any of it wasn't good. It's just a lot. Like it's like when you're first getting into heavy metal, you're going from like a rock thing and you're trying to get into it. And if you go to that like real extreme, you're like, this is just a bunch of noise. This guy's screaming and the drums are going 100 miles an hour and it's like, and you're just like, I don't know what's going on. My brain's melting. But it didn't take long, right? But the good thing about Don and I was that Don and I actually like a lot of the same kind of music that was more like the harder heavy metal, but not super hard. Like before, like let's not go to the Pantera stages, right? So let's stay in the 80s kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, you liked Queensryche, I liked Queensryche, you liked Wasp, I like Wasp. We both like Suicidal Tendencies, Sabotage, of course. We both like Dokken. And the weird thing is metal was very fragmented, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
there were people that were like, "That's not fucking metal, man. You got to
Right.
listen to this," you know. And you're like,
Right.
"Fuck you. I don't, you know, whatever. I like what I
People still do
like."
it.
Yeah, I know. You're not kidding. It's always been that way. But I like what I like. Although it's weird that like the people that hated some of the stuff that we liked, they came around later on. They're like, those guys are good, you know. And it's like, all right, you didn't like them back then, but okay, you know, I took a lot of shit back then from you guys over this stuff that I liked,
right?
but now you guys like it. It's like, okay.
I went to, and I'm not trying to interrupt your thought or whatever, but I went to a Rush show with Oz, and the whole time I'm just shaking my head like, wait, what are you doing here? Like, why are you here? And he's like, what? I like Rush. And I'm like, no, you don't. And I was like, when? Since when? And like, I remember back early on, he hated Styx. Now, love Styx. And I shouldn't complain because it's like, okay, cool, you like them, that's good. But it's still like, seriously, dude, like, you never liked them, and you always used to make fun of me for it and stuff. He's like, no, not anymore. They're good. It's like, whatever, jerk.
Yeah, no, you're right. And Oz is our friend Oz. He was on one of the Midwest Wastelands talking about fights, but that guy is he's real opinionated and he's real locked in on what he likes and what he doesn't like. And if he likes what you like, he's all about it. But if he doesn't like, then he'll vocally hate it on you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, we do have other friends like that, but this guy is a real. He just will let you know. You know what I mean? Like Blackie will let you know too. But it's like, I don't know. I have some respect for Oz more than I have for somebody like Blackie. Like Oz, you know, he knows a lot of stuff, but there's lots of things I disagree with him on too, you know, but it's just one of those things. But everybody had opinions and things like that about metal music. But I think, probably around 87, 88, it started to get more mainstream. Like when I got back like 88, in ninth grade and everything, I think we were on our way at that point. Headbangers Ball was just coming out or just about out. And that I think MTV, for instance, and this gives you a great idea of where we were with heavy metal. MTV didn't know what to make of heavy metal, right?
Right.
So they said, hey, you know what? I guess this is popular with the kids. People want to make videos. The record labels want us to air this stuff, but we're not going to put it on during the day. So we're going to put it on midnight on a Saturday and run it for a few hours. And if the kids are up and they want to watch it, you know, it's kind of adults only. I don't know, it deals with Satan or something. I don't know. But you can tell this is the way MTV was thinking about it, right? And it must have just, exploded. You know what I mean? Like, because it was really popular. And then all of a sudden MTV's like, you know, we should have like hard 60 and hard 30 and play hard rock during the day. You know what I mean? And it was the same with like a lot of these radio shows, not Z-Rock, because that was here and gone, like before you could cough once and it's gone. But other things you would have to wait up until late at night to listen to like some of these metal shows that would be on, say, 98.5 or whatever. Or some of these other stations, because they would have a metal show, but it would be late at night, and then they would be interviewing a band or something. And most of the time, you'd be listening to a lot of these things, and there'd be a lot of glam bands that you didn't like on there. Be like, we're going to interview the Bullet Boys tonight. You'd be like, Jesus, I don't want to hear this crap, you know. But every so often, you'd get lucky, and they'd be like, we got King Diamond here, or, you know, we got, you know, Iron Maiden or something. And you'd be like, great, you know, like, this is worth listening to, or whatever. And a lot of record stores, I think it was a good time for record stores because a lot of independent record stores had opened up. There was like 3 or 4 record stores at the mall that we went to. And when I call them record stores, people just understand that that's the vernacular. And if you're younger, and they did sell like cassettes and then eventually CDs. And I think even with CDs, we called them record stores. Nobody ever called them CD stores. You go into the CD store? Nobody said that.
Remember CD World?
Yeah, I mean, or Tape World. I mean, you might say like you're going to Tape World, but you're still, in a general sense, everything was just record stores.
They had that place on Brook Park Extension across from, or like over by where Frankie's is, and it was called CD World. And I remember walking in there, and there was like barely anything because remember when CDs first came out, they only did certain things. Like only certain albums would be on CDs. And I remember walking in there and just looking around like, there's nothing in here. There's it's just funny. But
no, that's cool. I'm sorry. I apologize, everybody. I got this text thing going on. I just got to end this here.
Well, go ahead. I'll tell everybody a fun story.
Okay, go ahead.
About the past, because like you were saying earlier, how like, because back in our day, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have, people posting stuff everywhere. You never knew when an album was going to come out unless they were like promoting it. And they didn't promote bands like Sabotage or anything like that. So it was like, you'd always see Kiss is coming out with a new album, or Iron Maiden, or Rush. And it's like all these big bands. So we never knew. And I know I've told the story before, but when Kevin worked at Manchu Walk in the mall, and I went up to the mall one day and I'm walking around, I would do my rotation of the 4 record stores. I'd start on the Strip and hit that one. Then I'd go into the mall and I'd hit Record Den. Then I'd hit Record World. Then I'd hit Tape World or whatever. And I remember hitting my locations. I went to Record Den, which is in the Commons, like directly across from Manchu Walk. And I'm just sitting there. I'm like, Sabotage, Gutter Ballet. What is this? And because at that time we didn't know, we knew Hall of the Mountain King, which I learned from Davey, Collector's Warehouse. He showed me, he introduced me to Sabotage. And so we didn't know. We were like, Hall of the Mountain King, that's all there is. And then we would find like Power of the Night. We're like, whoa, Power of the Night. Then there would be like Fight for the Rock. Like, whoa, Fight for the Rock, Sirens. Whoa. We were surprised because we didn't know. We couldn't go on a computer and type in Sabotage and be like, what albums do they have? And so it's like, I remember walking in there and finding Gutter Ballet, and I pulled it out and I'm looking at it. I go, what is this? And I look at the date and it's like, this is brand new. And I remember buying it right on the spot and then running right over to Manchu Walk and being like, Kevin, look. I'm like, it's Sabotage. It's called Gutter Ballet. It's brand new. And he just went, I guess I got to get that. It's like, yeah, it's over there. I don't even know what it sounds. I didn't even open it. I was just like, I don't even know what it sounds like. I don't know any of the songs on it, but they got a new album out. And that's how it was back then. Is like you would have to go to the stores and search through all your favorite bands because you didn't know. You're like, what? I don't know what they got. Oh, I've never seen this album before. It was cool because it was like a lottery because you didn't know what you were ever going to get. But then when you did get something, you were just like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah, Sabotage. I think Sabotage is interesting because I think they were ahead of their time. Like, part of it is the fact that, like, and I think some of the reason they didn't get the mainstream appeal that a lot of other bands did is John was a little weird. John wrote about weird things. He sang a little weird, but he also wrote some songs like, Thorzine Shuffle and things that people are just like, what am I listening to? Or the Hounds or something. Like, what's going on with this guy? This guy sounds a little
The
whack.
whip is going to get you.
He was very, it's like power metal. Like if you're into power metal these days, it might not seem that odd, but back then, if you were singing about fantastical type things, I don't know, but
hi, welcome to hell.
But his brother was like an amazing guitarist, just amazing, and Dave Mustaine from Megadeth asked him to join Megadeth at one point, because he was just that good, and they have great tunes. And the thing is that I say they were ahead of their time because before everybody went grunge and a lot of the metal bands were like, well, now we're kind of a progressive band, like say Queensryche. Sabotage was already going progressive at Gutter Ballet. Like the last real heavy metal album they had was Hall of the Mountain King. And Gutter is a good progressive metal. It's great, really. It's a great progressive metal album, and Streets that followed it is amazing. It's a great album. And there's another fine example. Like they're like, we need some radio play. We need a song that we can play on the radio. And John's like, let's do this song called Jesus Saves. And it's like, it's not really about Jesus. It's just this guy in the street that we call Jesus, and people are like, yeah, and he's probably giving some backstory. But anybody that listened to it, from out, I was like, oh, is this religious rock? Which, what I mean? Like, it's like, I don't want to listen to this guy screaming about Jesus. You know what I mean?
This guy's Striper?
Right. And it was like, of all the songs you could have picked for airplay, that was a bad choice, John. You know what I mean? Like, well, the guy was just drunk half the time, I think, when he was doing stuff. Like, the label in him, it's just weird. And then what happened was for medical reasons, and because he was not a very charismatic frontman, I think he kind of started out all right, but he gained a lot of weight and just was, as Don and I were saying, was just real kind of a little screamy, I guess.
Yeah.
He said, I'm going to take a back seat. I'm not going to sing anymore. We're going to get a new singer. So they bring in this other guy, charismatic guy, I guess, and he could sing, but kind of a block of wood in a way. You know what I mean? Like, just like real uninteresting guy. Like, I don't know very much about him.
I don't even know who he is.
Right. I think Zach is his name or something.
Oh, Zach something. Yeah.
Yeah. And
but it's like ZAC Zach.
Right. And like the guy, look, they then released like a couple of okay albums, not great, right? A Handful of Rain, and I don't even know which order. I think maybe it was the Edge of Thorns, and then it was Handful of Rain, which had, I think, more production value in that, maybe because things were transitioning to CD at that point, but they were a lot more. You could tell they were run over by the production stuff. They were really trying to get more airplay. They were trying to be like, this is a band that people want to get into and stuff, but it was real different. And, I think they really kind of lost people. And then of course they came out with, Dead Winter Dead, which was a concept album about the war in, Yugoslavia, basically Kosovo and, Bosnia and all that kind of stuff. And that's of course where the Christmas song comes from. And then like, but before that even happened, I think it was on Edge of Thorns. That's when Chris died. And so,
that was me out.
And really they probably, well, I don't know if they should have stopped, but I think that like it was a mess after that point a little bit. I mean, Dead Winter Dead's actually a pretty decent album, but the thing is that like, they brought in Chris Cafferty on guitar, which we liked, but he was more of the rhythm guitarist originally when Chris Oliva, the original guitarist, was there. I don't even know if Chris Cafferty went to lead. I think they got Al Petrelli from Testament to play lead, and that lineup was okay. But then there was this kind of like this new singer. He didn't want to sing anymore, or he didn't want to sing as much or something. So John was like, well, I'll sing, but he was still kind of a mess. And they came out with like 2 more albums, which is just crazy to me, right? Because none of these albums chart. You know what I mean? Like they don't chart. And they're like, yeah, we're going to release this one about a ship called the Wake of Magellan, which was just, it was okay musically, but I mean, it just like nobody gave a shit. You know what I mean? Like you wrote a song, you wrote an album about a boat. You know what I mean? And then
Chris was trying to be, or not Chris, John was trying to be smarter than he wanted. You know what I mean? It was like he was trying to be like, look at me, I'm a musician. I'm a so smart person. I don't know. Yeah.
And then they came out Poets and Madmen, which, I mean, I'm a Sabotage fan. I've still never listened to that album.
I think you gave it to me.
I probably did. I probably got it like in a Columbia House thing or something. I was like, here, you want this? Because I ain't going to listen to it.
And I honestly, I've never, I think it's in my shed. I think it's outside. I don't even go in the shed ever. I was going through stuff and I pulled it out. Was like, where the hell did I get this from?
Yeah. So, right. And I'm going to eventually buy it here because it's actually kind of rare. It only sold, according to the charts, it only sold about 20,000 copies, which is miserable. And that's when the band just broke up and just did the Trans-Siberian thing. Lately, there's been talk that they're gonna cut potentially some new music. We'll see. John certainly has stayed busy. The guy came out with Dr. Butcher, which was like a single album of metal that he did.
Yeah.
I don't think he toured on that. I don't know. It was kind of strange. And then he did John Oliva's Pain. And it was 2 albums. And he said, for all intents and purposes, this is Sabotage without Chris. I don't know, but it was not as progressive as Sabotage, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't necessarily agree with that. It just depends on, if it's Al Pitrelli and Chris Cafferty and John, we'll see where they go. And then John has a solo record that I have. It was like some sort of, I can't even remember the name of it anymore. It was like a double album that I have. It was okay. But the guy is just, he's just weird.
Yeah.
He just keeps getting album deals and making music, and he has the in, I guess, in order to make records. I don't know what he promised or whatever when he was just like, yeah, I remember we did that one about the boat. I got this idea. We can make this. All right, John. You know what I mean? Whatever you say, buddy. Let's go ahead. Yeah. You haven't hit gold yet, but hey, 11 albums. Come on. Why not? Give it a shot.
Got to sometime.
Yeah. Maybe it'll go for you this time. It seems like a winning idea. I don't know. And it's not the only band that we listen to. I mean, a lot of people didn't like Queensryche back in the day. And Queensryche is another interesting band that also had like some issues because they have very strong albums in the early days.
Oh my God.
Like just like the first
Rage for Order is amazing.
Yeah, like the first 4 albums I think are just absolutely fantastic. And the first one's really kind of like an EP, the Queensryche. I think it's just Queensryche. There's a Lady Wore Black on it, right? And then there's Rage for Order.
The Warning.
Like yeah, which is also great. And then, of course, Mindcrime, right? And Empire is good, too. It got a little bit too much airplay. It got a little bit stale, but it's a good album. And then after that, they kind of, I don't know, they got hit by the grunge thing and just sort of, they didn't become grunge, but they just, the music changed. The production values went down. It wasn't the same after that. They were trying to do some sort of like, hey, we're a progressive band now, and we're not going to do all that metal stuff. And it was just like, yeah, no one's listening to this,
Yeah.
It's not good.
Nobody wanted to hear Silent Lucidity over and over again.
Right. Exactly. I mean, cool song, but got a little bit too, I mean, it's not metal. It's not a metal song. You know what I mean? It's just it's like a Pink Floyd song or something. And it's like, it's cool that Queensryche could do a song like that. But yeah, I mean, how many times can you listen to it? It's, they used to play these things to death back then. But that's just another band that they got annihilated after the whole changeover. And there were a lot of bands that didn't survive. Warrant was a very popular hair band. Janie Lane drank himself to death, but they tried to transition and failed. I can think of more, I suppose, but then out of the blue, of course. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, all those bands just kind of went out of commission. Motley Crue, Poison, Rat. I mean, the only metal, quote unquote, metal bands that were still surviving were the big ones. You know what I mean? Like Maiden was still putting out albums,
right?
And even they had a new singer at the time,
right?
And people liked it, but the original people were like, no.
I think they cut their hair too, though. Like I think they were like, yeah, we don't have long hair anymore. Like that was like a thing everybody was doing. They were like, yeah, we're all cutting our hair. Metallica did. We're all right. Like Metallica's like the biggest band, of the time, and they're just like, yeah, now we all have short hair. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and right. You're just like, what are you guys trying to? You're not fucking. What are you gonna wear? Grandma's sweater and jeans like Nirvana now too?
Like Great White, White Snake, and like all those bands that it was just like no, nobody cared anymore.
Nobody cared except fucking somehow. Pantera came along and just owned it, right? They just prisoners. Right. They just were like, they doubled down on metal. I mean, that's basically what it was. They sort of started out as some sort of Def Leppard type of band in the first album or something.
Teased hair and everything.
Yeah, they were, and then they just were like, we're going to double down on this, on metal, and their albums were heavy. I mean, just heavy. But not death metal heavy. It was a different thing, It
was groove. It was groove metal. It was like how like you listen to the old Sabbath songs, and they always have you could move your head to a Sabbath, and you're like, yeah, that's a good. It's just one note. That's all it is a good groove, though. You know what I mean? And that's what Pantera was. It was great grooves, and Daryl was an amazing guitarist. who could just make the weirdest noises and the weirdest things and do it live. That it was insane.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, I wasn't that into Pantera. I had Cowboys from Hell, but I wasn't as into them as the rest of you guys were.
Right.
And not negative on them or anything, but there was a how can I say this? There was you called it a groove, but it was like there was an undertone of violence.
Yeah.
When you hang out with like Dan or any of those guys, like when Pantera starts playing, like some people wanted to throw down. I mean, it was just it was a more serious situation when Pantera was playing. No, kind of ironic that their guitarist got gunned down. But I mean, even when they had Phil Anselmo, I mean, that guy's voice was super low and, bassy, and he was just full of himself to the point where it just matched what they were playing. It was just a different thing. And they just owned it, man. Like they kind of held metal together, I think, because it was all going progressive or gone. And I don't think any metal band that I can think of actually even tried to go from metal to grunge. I don't think anybody was like, we were metal and now we're grunge. I can't think of anybody that did that. It was like you were just grunge, that you were new or you were out. And like you said, some big bands, Metallica, Iron Maiden, etc. Some bands like Wasp stuck around. Well, Kiss. I mean,
Kiss tried to go the grunge route.
Did they really?
They never released that album.
Good.
There's an album called Carnival of Souls, and if you listen to it, you're like, that's an Alice in Chains song. That sounds like Soundgarden. You're just like, oh, come on, guys. Like, just musically, lyrics are still.
It just sounds like something Gene would have thought of to do.
Yeah, he did. He said that in an interview. He goes, this next album is going to be like Alice in Chains, and like darker and deep. And it's just like, whatever.
Always chasing the dollar, Gene. But,
but nobody else. I mean, you're right. There's nobody who was like, okay, let's go and be a grunge band now.
Or nobody successfully, right? I mean, it was grunge was a short thing, but the record industry just amazingly just like shut down everybody that was making records, Yeah. And maybe because, I mean, a lot of people make it sound like they just were like, they were suddenly interested in grunge and metal didn't exist anymore. But I think they're going to go where the album sales are. And the fact of the matter is that nobody was buying metal anymore, and all the kids wanted the grunge rock, and so that's what they sold. But I mean, there were winners and losers there too, and we talked a little bit about that. A lot of them just ended up dead. Right. So it didn't last that long, but there was a few summers there where grunge was the thing in the early '90s.
But I went and bought the first Pearl Jam album at Record Exchange, and this dude we went to school with was working behind the counter. And when I walked up and put it down, he goes, "Donnie Anderson's buying Pearl Jam?" And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "I thought you were a metal dude." And I was like, "I can like other types of music." I was like, "What?" I can listen to other stuff. He goes, "It's just strange that you're buying grunge." I was like, "Okay,
yeah,
fair enough."
No, I bought that. That's a great album, though. I mean, 10. That's a great album.
Yeah.
Nirvana's album was great. It didn't make any sense, but musically it was great.
Alice in Chains' Facelift was great.
Alice in Chains, right?
You weren't much of an Alice in Chains guy.
No, not really. But I mean, they had some airplay, and so I like some of their songs.
Soundgarden.
They did that Temple of the Dog thing. Soundgarden was amazing. Not that I got into all of these, but we were also just at a different age. I mean, at that point, I was trying to make it. I didn't have money to go buy albums all the time and stuff like that.
Right.
I could buy some stuff, but I was also into, a different type of like the 90s alternative thing. I was more into like 9 Inch Nails and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
went on that.
I was going to say Lestat.
Right. A little different direction on that. But I did buy a lot of the popular stuff too.
Oddly enough, I was just thinking that, like, because here we are in high school, and even with Oz and Ram and all these guys that we went to school with, and your brother and stuff, and it's just like, this is Metal Church, and this is this, and this is here, and this is Suicidal, and here's this, and you know what I mean? And there was all kinds of stuff, and then all of a sudden, grunge happened, like you said, grunge happened, and me and Oz were sitting outside Midway Mall. We went in, we put our money together and bought a Nirvana, Nevermind by Nirvana, and came out to my car, and we sat in the parking lot and listened to it. You know what I mean? Because we were like, we got to figure out what this is all about. and we liked it. We were like, yeah, because it was aggressive and it was, da. So it's like, but it seems like after that whole, like as soon as grunge started, you just stopped hearing about everybody metal.
You did.
It was
over.
It was to the point where like me and Oz and Ram and stuff like that, we all started listening. That's when we all started on our 70s kick. You know what I mean? Like we started listening we were like, well, let's go back to disco and let's go back to, 70s light rock.
Right.
Like all this stuff. And then it's just kind of strange how that worked out,
No, you're
it's like there's no more new metal coming out. So this is what you're going to listen to,
Right. No, you're exactly. It was, and again,
and your direction changed. Like everybody's, you know what I mean? It's like that's the point I'm making. Like
there was no internet, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and even if there was, there wasn't. But even if there was, it still took a while from the internet to get to the point where we had downloadable music and streaming music and stuff. Like that was more or less a recent invention, streaming and things like that, where you have this unlimited catalog of music, For most people, the Napster thing, was maybe in the mid 2000s or something. But yeah, those early 90s days, nothing. And so, like, if the radios and the producers and stuff said, we're not going to make albums anymore, what are you going to do? You don't know where to go. You can't find it anywhere. It's not your record shop. You don't get a vote or anything. Right. It's just, it's gone, I mean, in Halloween, they got a different singer that I wasn't into at the time. But some of those, Germany, for some reason, managed to hold on to metal. Like, it was weird because when you did hear about metal, they were over there in Germany and some other European countries that were still doing like traditional metal. Like Dora Pesch managed to survive being a musician over there. Manowar hung out in Europe and everything. Some bands just managed to take it over there and hang on. Wasp, for instance. Wasp has managed to survive this entire time. I mean, it's probably been pretty threadbare at times, but Blackie Lawless never sold out, man. The guy just kept on making the same kind of music, for the most part, this entire time, which is surprising. But anyway, this is an interesting little a flashback on metal and the way it came in with this roar in like 80, to the mainstream in like 87, 88. And for about 5 years, maybe total,
if
that, we had, I would say by 91, it was on its way to death. Right. For sure. But I think we got out of high school still being long-haired hippie metal freak. Well, I did. I don't know if it was grunge transitioning when you were in high school. Do you remember your last year?
No, because I think we were out of school when that started because I was, because we were still doing Adversary. And even we, if you think about it, towards like when Tom left and everything, and we were still together with like Mark Shea or Kurt or whatever, and we would be like, hey, why don't we do an Alice in Chains song? I remember actually bringing that up, like, why don't we do an Alice in Chains song? So it's like, I was writing songs with Adam and they were grunge sounding. You know what I mean? It was kind of strange. So even like the local metal.
No, I mean it was, but I mean I don't think you guys were playing with a lot of grunge bands at any point. I don't recall any.
No, we weren't.
Right.
We never did.
It was, but it definitely glam died a death before anything else, and then the other ones just faded away too. But anyway. A little nostalgia throwback thing there, but I was just thinking about it. Like, when did metal become mainstream? And it was just kind of an interesting conversation. But let's switch gears before we completely run out of time. I went and saw the Batman.
Oh, sorry. You want your 3 hours back?
No, it's okay. It was actually okay, but the thing is, like, it was an okay Batman. Like, it was like, it was too long, right?
Yeah.
We've talked about this before, but I don't want to just criticize a movie because it's too long. It just seems to be the thing they're doing these days with movies. And they also have this new thing called surge pricing. Have you heard about this?
Mm-mm.
So movies now and the movie studios have basically agreed that movie theaters can charge a surge price. So when a big blockbuster movie's coming out, they can charge more for tickets for it. So I don't recall what I paid, but I do know that apparently they were at least $1.50 more than they would be normally because of this surge pricing thing. And so that's not great. I'm not sure I'm a fan of that at all. Like all that's going to do is make people say like, I'm not going to go because it'll be cheaper later, or later it'll just be on TV for free. Like I'm certainly not going to go day of and pay more. Like this is a bad idea. And so, yeah, but anyway, I'm certainly not going to sit here and tell you guys all about like and spoil the movie or anything. I just want to talk about it in a general tone, right? It doesn't really deal with a lot of Bruce Wayne. Like there's not a lot of Bruce Wayne here. Like it's really like there is there's some crimes going on, right? Somebody's behind them. I think everybody knows if you watched the preview. And so he's going there as Batman to interrogate people or to look at, a potential murder scene or where something happened, or to get somebody. Pretty much, almost always Batman, almost. And so there's no like Wayne Industries and doing things there. There's no, going to funerals and things like that, as Bruce Wayne. It's like it's a pure Batman thing, which is cool, right? But it's kind of like, I guess my only real problem with it, other than I don't like the Riddle thing, because like, it's not just this thing. I see this in other things, and none of this was like something that actually happened. But the Riddle thing is always just like bread and butter, peanut butter, and then, somebody like Batman will be like jelly. And then they'll be like jelly. And he'll be like, he's talking about the Gotham Jelly Works. That's where Wayne Industries had, founded their cash flow and ran it through there. So he must be at the Jelly Works. You know what I mean? And as an audience member, you're never gonna figure that riddle out. You know what I mean? So there's no, like, you don't even have to sit there and think about it. You're just hearing it and you're like, go ahead and speak your babble. You know what I mean? To put the clues together so you look smart or something, and you figured it out, or because it's just nonsense. I've never been a fan of that whole thing. Lots of shows do that stupid shit, but but like it is just kind of like it's like a noir picture, but you just get this idea that like there's nothing that Batman's not going to handle. Like in the previews, you'll see guys like shooting at him in his armor-proof, bulletproof outfit, but everybody's thinking the same thing in their head: shoot him in the face. He doesn't have any protection on his face. Shoot him in the face. You know what I mean? Like nobody shoots nobody shoots the guy in the face. Like, come on. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I know it's just a comic book thing, but give me something, have him like, pop up like a metal shield or something over his face that detects a bullet's incoming or something. Like, give me something.
Right.
Like, give me something to believe in. And so, you know how it is. And so, but Catwoman type of thing, I think she did a good job. I think it was okay. It's just that, like, Batman's tired. Like, and I think it took him a while to even agree to do this, and I think it's just a tired thing. Like we've been here now so many times over and over again, and no one's gonna kill Batman. Batman's really not gonna kill anybody. He's just gonna plod his way through these things and get the bad guy, but the bad guy's going to get away again, and it's just going to be glum and gloomy and whatever.
Raining.
Yeah, raining and dark, and it's just
I was thinking about this yesterday or 2 days ago or something like that, because that's what my girlfriend said. She was just like, seriously, another Batman movie? And I'm like, you're right. Like, why are there so many Batman? And if you think about it, there's been quite a few over the past couple of years with Ben Affleck and the Justice League, and now this. It's just like, where is all this coming from? And I was sitting there thinking, I was like, it's kind of like James Bond almost. Like, I like James Bond movies, and I'm not mocking them. I'm not saying they're bad or anything like that, but I haven't seen one since Pierce Brosnan or whatever was James Bond.
Yeah.
Because I got to the point where I was like, okay, James Bond, he's just going to do the same stuff that he's always done. He's going to get through, he's going to get away from the bad guys, and he's going to stop the bad guys, and da 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 da.
Right.
And that's the same thing with Batman. And I was listening to NPR today because I listen to NPR, and they were talking about it. These guys were talking about the new Batman movie.
Yeah.
They were talking about the new Batman movie. And I was so happy to hear this person say, this chick was just like, the interviewer was like, I'm being told that this is the first Batman movie where they're actually not dealing with the death of his parents, where they don't have gunshots in an alleyway. They don't have him as a kid, and they don't have him growing up as an orphan. They don't have him, he's not just this rich kid who's an orphan and his parents died. And it just picks up whoever wrote it or directed it just made this movie as in, you guys know who Batman is. You already know who he is. We don't need to explain what his childhood was and all that stuff. And the girl that she's asking the question to goes, oh my God, it's so refreshing to not have to watch that story again.
Yes. Yes.
And I was just like, oh my gosh, finally they listened to me.
Right. No, yeah, absolutely. And the thing is it's like, in a weird way, I mean, Affleck's Batman, as a bit role Batman might make more sense for the DC universe going forward. They have more characters that really deserve the kind of money and director talent that's been going into Batman films, because they're not going into a lot of these other DC films.
Right.
I think Warner, who tends to do all the DC films, is just real loose with these films, and we've talked about this. And if they want to get to a Marvel level of selling billions of dollars in movie deals and stuff, they really got to tighten it up, man. They got to make sure these movies are good. You can't have a Wonder Woman Part 2 come out that's that atrocious. You just can't. Right. You got to be able to put your foot down and say, this needs to be rewritten. You need to reshoot this. It's crap, because some of this stuff is. Now, this Batman's not. It's too long, but it's not crap. But there's lots of things that are. And listen, I mean, we both grew up mostly reading Marvel. You read a little DC, but I mean, we both like Marvel more. But DC does have a large catalog, just like Marvel does. They've been competitive for a long time, and they can certainly do stuff other than Superman and freaking Batman, and do it well if they want to. And it's just some of the TV show stuff isn't too bad, but it's not movie caliber stuff either. They've got to kind of do something with these DC licenses if they want to compete in a good way, because it's they're just look, let's all just be honest, they're just getting killed by Marvel. I mean, Marvel's just dominant. And the last thing we want, I think, and I'm speaking as, we don't want Marvel to buy DC out. You know what I mean? We don't want them to own all those characters too, because I like having an alternative thing. I like a Suicide Squad idea. If Disney had that idea, it might have been a more popular movie, but I think the tone of it would have been completely different, Right. And I think that, having another company out there making superhero movies that can be edgy, is good. But they got to tighten it up. If they're able to do a Christopher Nolan and have 3 successful Batman movies, they can certainly do that with some of these other films. You don't have to make Aquaman the greatest thing ever, but could have been better. I mean, Wonder Woman, the first one was good, but the second one was ass. And I'm sure they'll do a third one. I hope the third one's good. I don't know.
I haven't seen any of them. I've never seen Aquaman, Wonder Woman 1 or 2. I didn't see the Ben Affleck. I've seen bits and pieces of Justice League and the Ben Affleck Batman, but it's just, I'm just, you know what I mean? I'm over it. It's just like, okay, he's just going to do the same stuff he's always done. He's going to pull a rope out of his belt. He's going to do shark repellent. Just, be able to beat people up and stuff.
No, listen, I didn't watch any of that either. I did watch Aquaman. It was trash. The first Wonder Woman is okay because Gal Gadot or whatever, she's charismatic enough that she's like, she'll keep your interest in watching. I don't mean that in a sexual way or anything. I mean, she's just as an actor, she fits that role. She's just really tall and athletic, and she has a nice personality about her, and the story was written well. So the first Wonder Woman is worth watching. The second one's trash, and I just think that they can do better. There's more characters, man. There's more characters, and
it's kind of. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's funny because in the TV shows they show more newer characters, not new as in like just created, but they show more new characters than any of the movies do. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's like, I just read something about this last season of what is it, Legends? What are Legends of Tomorrow? And they're like, they introduced Booster Gold, and I was like, okay, now that's not somebody I know.
Right.
I know who he's. I know the name because I hung out in the comic book shop.
Yeah.
So I've seen the comic books. I never read him. I never did anything. You know what I mean? Here or there, you see him once or twice, and it's like, and then you hear they're introducing Booster Gold, and I'm thinking to myself, well, about time. It's like, even though I'm not a reader of that character, or I don't really know that story of that character, I still know the character, and the fact that it took this long just for them to introduce that one guy, it's like, you still got Martian Manhunter, and you still got the Blue Beetle, and you still got like all these different people. It's just like they're just doing it wrong.
They're doing it wrong. Yeah, no, 100%. That's it exactly, and they need to kind of. I don't know. Maybe maybe DC should get a deal with Sony, or maybe not Sony, but I mean, maybe Paramount, somebody else that's not owned by Disney, and take it in a different direction or something, that somebody can do a better job with the license, because it has the potential to be big. The DC has a lot of fans, and they don't need to make Hostess Fruit Pie type movies. They need to do take these licenses and be creative with them, like Marvel has done, and / Disney, and you could at least make them more. Look, they know what they're doing. Like, even though I'm not a big Batman dude, I'm sure most of the people it got good reviews. It's like 83% on Rotten Tomatoes. Lots of people probably went out and saw it. Lots of people like Batman. I'm sure everybody thought it was serviceable. They know what they're doing with Batman, right? They're making money with Batman, and they don't seem to really know what they're doing with anybody else. I guess that's my main concern. Even with like Superman is just like, we've done him to death, and we don't need another origin story about Superman. And if they wanted to introduce his weaknesses and things like that, then other than kryptonite, like magic and all this other stuff, they could certainly take the character there if they want to. I think Superman's a little bit boring, but on the whole, they have a wide selection of characters, and they can certainly do better. But all right, anyway, I think we're done. You got anything else you want to say, Dan?
I love comic books.
Woo! Yeah.
And I love metal. I love heavy metal.
Heavy metal.
My favorite color is blue. My favorite type of music is heavy metal music.
And we'll be back next week. And don't forget, folks, you can always write us at Oblast at vgn.us. And if you've got topics or anything that you'd like us to talk about on the show, because if you're sitting there going to yourself like, I'm tired of hearing about comic books and
Sabotage,
Boba Fett and whatever you guys are talking about,
right.
We'll be happy to talk about whatever you'd like us to focus on. Just send us some suggestions, and we'll do our best. I mean,
we don't really care what you people want. We're just doing this to talk to each other.
If it ends up being like something you want to hear about air conditioning repair, I mean, maybe we'll have Gillian. But no, I mean, we're just the week goes by. Honestly, we went real quick. We went to that. I went to that wake. You know, I don't know if you went.
Okay.
Did you go?
I did not.
No.
It's
okay. And it was a heavy metal wake though. Like I had tennis shoes on, black slacks, and a button down because I had to go into work. And I was overdressed by far. I felt awkward shaking her son's hand because I think he probably looked at me and was like, "You don't belong here."
Yeah, right.
You know, like
you don't know my mom.
Right. You know, and it's like I didn't want to explain it. I you know what I mean? I just was like, put my head down, and just moved on. But you know, yeah. So it's like, but other than that, like, I don't do a whole lot all week. I work at home.
Right.
I don't see a lot of anybody. So it's sort of like I don't have a lot of current, other than my health problems, stories to tell about things that are going on that are interesting and exciting. I wish that was different. But well, maybe not. I don't necessarily want bad things to happen to make interesting radio or anything.
Sure.
But I kind of got to go with what I know and take it from there. And you know, just like you, I mean, I'm sure if something exciting happened at work, you would maybe remember it and talk about it. And you know, but yeah, if nothing happens, it's week to week. I don't know what we're going to talk about. So send us some suggestions, folks. Oblast@vgn.us. And yeah, we'll talk about them on the show. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next week.
Peace.
You've been listening to Oblast with Don and Kevin. If you'd like to write into the show, send an email to oblast@vgn.us. That is VGN as in video game news. And be sure to check out our Patreon page, which is at patreon.com/VGN, where you can get all of our shows, our videos, and some musings. Be sure to tune in each week for new episodes on our Patreon page or every other week on the public RSS feed that you're subscribed to now. Thanks for listening, and good night.
Peace.